Hello, I'm
So,
Jake.
what do you think of
I'm
this?
29. I
That's
live in a small
interesting.
but
Brings
decent
back good
apartment just
memories.
outside
Yeah, like
Chicago,
that trip we
Illinois.
took?
I work in
Exactly. You were
marketing corporate
amazing then.
stuff, mid-level
Thanks. You
position,
too.
decent salary enough to
Hey, ready
love,
to go?
pay rent,
Yeah, you
go
look
on two
amazing.
vacations a year
Thanks.
if I
Can you get
budget
my bag?
smart.
Of course.
Nothing flashy. I'm not
I can't
flashy.
wait
I
for
like
tonight.
quiet
Me neither. It's
places,
going to be great.
bookstores, music that's not too loud, and people who don't fake laugh just to fit in. I've been working at this company for 3 years. Solid people, some good, some trying too hard. Our boss, Mr. Clark, is the kind of man who commands a room without even raising his voice. You know the type, custom suits, gray temples, calm like a wolf who already knows he's won. And his wife, Michelle, she's this elegant presence who always shows up to events with him, says just the right words, wears just the right dress, smiles just enough, not too much, never too little. I'd never spoken to her one-on-one, just the occasional polite nod during office parties. So anyway, this happened at our end-of-year corporate party. Big place this time, a rented estate just outside the city. Big garden lights strung over the courtyard on a live jazz band inside. Everyone was dressed to impress. The champagne was flowing. People were loosening ties, dancing. I tried, I really did. I shook hands, thanked the HR team for the bonus, did the rounds with the marketing crew. But after my second glass of wine, I realized I wasn't feeling it. The noise, the laughter that felt slightly forced the crowd, it started to get heavy, like the air itself was pushing down on my chest. So I slipped out the back terrace door and found myself outside. Cold air hit me like a relief. Not freezing, just that sharp winter evening chill that wakes you up. The yard was lit by soft garden lamps. The music was muffled behind me. I leaned on the stone railing and just stood there. No phone, no small talk, just breathing. And that's when I heard them, heels on the patio, slow, deliberate steps. I turned and there she was, Michelle Sherwin. She was holding a glass of champagne, her hair pinned up, earrings that caught the low light. I straightened up instinctively, like I'd been caught doing something wrong, even though I was just standing. She smiled, soft but tired.
So, what do you
Mind
think of
if I join
this?
your escape?
It's
She
interesting.
asked.
Brings back good
I
memories.
blinked. I
Yeah, like
wasn't
that trip
expecting
we took?
anyone, let alone her.
Exactly. You were
Be my
amazing then.
guest, I said,
Thanks.
trying to
You too.
sound calm, not awkward.
Hey,
I
ready to
probably
go?
failed.
Yeah, you look
She
amazing.
walked over and
Thanks.
stood
Can you
next
get
to
my
me,
bag?
close
Of
but not too
course.
close. The silence
I
was
can't
different,
wait
not
for
uncomfortable.
tonight.
Me neither. It's going to be
It
great.
felt like we both needed it. Too loud in there? I asked after a moment. She let out a small laugh. It always is. Everyone tries so hard to have the perfect night. Makes it exhausting. I nodded. Yeah, I think I hit my social limit after the second toast. She turned her head toward me, raising one eyebrow. Only the second, I smiled. I paced myself. We stood there for a while, just breathing. Her glass clinked softly as she shifted it in her hand. You'd be surprised how loud silence can be, she said suddenly, when you're pretending to smile all night. That hit me because it wasn't about the party, not really. It was something deeper. She wasn't talking about noise. She was talking about pretending about loneliness that hides in plain sight. I didn't know what to say, so I just said the truth. Yeah, I get that. She glanced over at me, studying me. You don't talk like the others. I gave a little shrug. Maybe because I don't think like the others. That made her smile again, this time a little warmer, less polished. She looked back out toward the garden. You ever feel like you're just playing a role, like you're in someone else's movie? Every Tuesday and Thursday, I said. She laughed, not a rich social laugh, not forced, a real short laugh that made her shoulders relax for the first time since she stepped out. I noticed her fingers were red from the cold. She didn't seem to care. I needed this, she said. So did I. We didn't say much after that, a few more shared glances, a few quiet seconds where the world didn't ask anything from us. Before she turned to go back inside, she looked at me and said, "Thanks for being real tonight." And just like that, she was gone. I stood there a little longer thinking about what just happened. It wasn't flirtation, it wasn't a come on, but it wasn't nothing either. It felt honest, strange, like a doorway had opened I didn't even know existed. And I couldn't stop thinking about the way she said it. Mind if I join your escape? Because for the first time all night, it felt like I actually did. I didn't expect anything to happen after that night. It was just a quiet moment, right? Just two people tired of the same loud noise, sharing space in silence. Nothing more. But the next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it, not obsessively, just subtly the way you remember a strange dream in the middle of the day out of nowhere. The sound of her voice. That line, mind if I join your escape? I don't know why it stuck. Maybe because it wasn't small talk. It was real. Work resumed like usual. January hit cold dry. Routine emails, weekly metrics, status meetings. I buried myself in project timelines and social media strategy reports. Pretended nothing about that evening meant anything. But then 3 days later, I found something on my desk, a plain envelope, no name, no writing on it, just sitting there between a stack of printouts and my coffee cup. I glanced around the office, but nobody was paying me any attention. It wasn't weird enough to raise alarms, just
So,
strange.
what do you think of
I
this?
opened it.
It's interesting.
Inside
Brings
was a
back good
small
memories.
note card.
Yeah, like that trip
On
we
it,
took?
written in clean, delicate
Exactly. You were
cursive.
amazing then.
If you ever
Thanks.
take
Me
another
too.
break, I'd join again.
Hey, ready to go?
No signature,
Yeah,
just
you
that.
look amazing.
I read it
Thanks.
3
Can you get
times
my
before
bag?
sliding
Of
it back into
course.
the envelope. I should have
I
felt
can't wait
panicked,
for
but I
tonight.
didn't.
Me neither. It's
I
gonna be
felt
great.
calm, warm, even like someone had tapped me on the shoulder in a crowd and said, I see you. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't write back. Not yet. The next time I saw her was in the elevator. She stepped in on the 6th floor alone, holding her phone in one hand and a small planner in the other. I nodded politely. She nodded back. That was it. But when she stepped out on the executive level, I saw the faintest smirk tug at the corner of her mouth. It wasn't nothing. A few days later, I went for lunch near the office, a quiet cafe I sometimes used to get out of my head. It was midweek. Snow still lined the sidewalks, but the sky had that cold blue brightness that made everything seem cleaner than it was. I was halfway through a turkey sandwich and reading news on my phone when I felt someone slide into the seat across from me. It was her, Michelle. No makeup beyond the bare minimum sunglasses pushed up on her head. She looked real softer than at the party, less polished. More human. I figured this place would be your style, she said. I blinked. You followed me? She raised her brows, amused. It's across the street from my husband's building. I've been coming here longer than you've been employed. I smirked. Fair. We sat there for almost an hour. She didn't talk about her husband and I didn't ask. She asked about my family, if I had any siblings, how I ended up in marketing when I looked like I should be fixing motorcycles. I told her my story. Small town state school, first job was handing out samples in a grocery store. She told me she used to write short stories, mostly had a few published years ago, said she stopped after her wedding. Too much real life, she said. It wasn't a date, not really, but it didn't feel accidental either. Before she left, she placed her hand gently on the table, fingertips close to mine, not touching, just there. She looked at me for a second and said, You make it easy to talk. That's rare. Then she stood
So,
and
what do you
left.
think of this?
I sat there
It's
5 more
interesting.
minutes
Brings
before
back good
packing
memories.
up.
Yeah,
When I
like that
got back
trip
to
we
the
took?
office, I opened my
Exactly.
email
You
to
were
a new
amazing then.
message. No
Thanks.
subject
Me too.
line, no text, just
Hey,
an image
ready to go?
attachment.
Yeah, you
It
look
was a
amazing.
photo of a small,
Thanks. Can you get
dusty
my bag?
bookstore, one
Of
of those
course.
old places that smell like
I can't
paper and
wait for
time.
tonight.
Me
The
neither.
kind
It's
of
gonna be
place
great.
you don't discover unless you're looking for something else. In the file name Thursday 6 p.m., nothing else. I told myself not to go, told myself it was risky, unprofessional, stupid, but I went. Thursday came and I waited outside that bookstore just before 6. She arrived in a long gray coat, a scarf wrapped twice around her neck. She smiled like we were just two friends meeting for tea. Inside, the place was dead silent, one old man at the counter, dozing a cat asleep on a stack of travel books. We walked through aisles, barely speaking. She stopped at a poetry section, pulled a random book, and handed it to me. Open it, she said. I did. Inside, between the pages, was a pressed yellow flower, a real one, maybe years old. She said, People leave pieces of themselves in books, little secrets. You ever think about that? I didn't answer. I was too busy looking at her hands, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the curve of her mouth when she said things like that. That night we didn't touch, didn't kiss, didn't flirt. But something had shifted. On the train ride home, I kept thinking, what am I doing? And I didn't know the answer, but I knew it wasn't nothing. A week slid by after the bookstore. I tried to file the evening away as a pleasant anomaly, but the memory kept resurfacing at the oddest times, waiting for coffee, proofreading copy, brushing my teeth. Every flash brought back the smell of old paper and a silver glint in her eyes when she talked about forgotten secrets pressed between pages. Tuesday afternoon, I was final checking a campaign deck when my office phone buzzed. Internal call, no name, just an extension I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then picked up. Jake speaking. Silence for half a second, then her voice soft, amused. "You're difficult to surprise twice." My pulse jumped. Apparently not impossible. "Tomorrow," she said, 6, Harold Washington Library, 3rd floor reading room, if you're still pacing yourself. Click. I stared at the receiver like it might explain itself. It didn't. Wednesday, Chicago dusk leaked orange through the library's high windows. The 3rd floor reading room smelled of polished oak and winter coats thawing inside quiet, but not empty students retirees, a couple arguing in whispers over a genealogy microfilm. Michelle sat alone at a long table near the back, coat folded, phone face down. She'd tied her hair into a loose knot, no jewelry except a thin silver band on her right index finger. When she noticed me, she lifted a single eyebrow, equal parts greeting and question. I slid into the chair opposite. "Evening." "Evening," she echoed. "Glad you came." She opened the book in front of her, an anthology of American short stories, and turned it toward me. Page 217 was marked with a blue sticky note. "Read the first paragraph," she whispered. It was a Bradbury piece about a man who wakes up one day and realizes the world has gone silent. No engines, no clocks, no voices, just his
So, what do you
heartbeat.
think of this?
I finished the
It's
paragraph and
interesting.
looked
Brings
up.
back good memories.
"That's how
Yeah,
last
like
year
that trip
felt,"
we
she
took?
said. "Noise
Exactly. You were
everywhere
amazing then.
except where it
Thanks.
mattered."
You too.
I nodded,
Hey,
understanding more
ready to
than I
go?
wanted to admit.
Yeah, you look amazing.
We talked in
Thanks.
low
Can you get my
voices
bag?
about stories that
course.
had changed us teachers.
I
We'd
can't
loved
wait for
books. We'd
tonight.
lied
Me
about
neither. It's gonna
finishing
be
in
great.
college. Now and then she'd laugh real throaty, unguarded. Each laugh seemed to deposit something warm in the air between us. A security guard announced, closing in 15. We gathered our things. In the elevator down, no one else around. The hum of cables and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights filled the silence. She glanced at the button panel as if it were suddenly fascinating, then said barely above a breath, "You ever wish you could freeze an hour all the time?" Me too. Doors opened onto the ground floor lobby. We didn't move. A new passenger waited outside, headphones on, scrolling his phone, oblivious. The doors closed again. She pressed 2 and the elevator lurched upward. Second floor stacks were deserted. Fluorescent lights clicked on as motion sensors registered us. Rows of philosophy and psychology titles stretched like empty streets. She walked a few paces, turned and faced me. "I keep telling myself this is reckless." "Same," I said. "Yet here we are." A tiny smile tugged at her mouth. I could hear my pulse in my ears. She reached up, brushed a cold fingertip along my cheekbone, and as if confirming I was real. Then she leaned in and kissed me, slow, tentative questioning. The world shrank to the press of soft lips, the faint citrus on her breath, the static crackle of overhead lights. 1 heartbeat, 2, 3. She pulled back, first eyes searching mine for panic. All I felt was startling, impossible calm. She exhaled. "So that's what honesty feels like." I couldn't think of anything clever, so I told the truth. "Worth every risk." The guard's voice echoed from the stairwell. "Final call." We hurried to the exit, silent, both smiling like kids who'd shoplifted candy and gotten away. Street-level chill outside. Snow teased the air but didn't commit. Her driver, black sedan engine idling, waited at the curb. She
So,
stopped
what do
3
you think of
steps from the
this?
door, turned.
It's interesting.
"I'm leaving
Brings back
town
good
Friday.
memories.
He
Yeah,
needs me
like
in
that trip
Miami
we
for a
took?
conference."
Exactly. You were
He,
amazing
Mr.
then.
Clark, her husband.
Thanks.
The
Me
name
too.
didn't need saying.
Hey, ready
"For
to
how
go?
long?" I asked.
Yeah, you
4
look
nights.
amazing.
Thanks.
She studied
Can
my
you get my
face.
bag?
Of course.
"Come Saturday, 8 Hallerso side
I
entrance."
can't wait for
No
tonight.
lights.
Me neither. It's gonna be
She
great.
pressed a slim brass key into my palm. The garden gate sticks lift, then push. I swallowed. "Michelle, are you sure?" "Absolutely not." She smiled, a little sad, mostly determined. "That's why I need you to be." The sedan door opened. She slid in, but before it shut, she leaned out and said, "Thank you for letting me be a person tonight." Then the door closed and the car merged into traffic, red taillights shrinking into Michigan Avenue's glow. I stood on the sidewalk until the cold finally bit through my coat and reminded me I was just Jake, again guy, with a mid-level salary and a key that didn't belong to him, burning a hole in his pocket. On the L ride home, I held the key tight, trying to feel its weight, its meaning, its danger. The train clattered over the river city lights, flashing by like frames from a film I wasn't sure I wanted to star in, but couldn't stop watching. And somewhere between Clarkway Lake and Chicago Avenue, I realized my heart hadn't slowed down since that elevator door first closed. Saturday came slower than most Saturdays, the kind where your hands shake a little in the morning and everything shower breakfast, even choosing socks, feels rehearsed, like you're performing for someone who isn't there yet. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not my neighbor, not the group chat. My phone stayed on silent in my jacket pocket. I stood across the street from the Clark's townhouse, 3 floors of red brick and black iron railing, elegant old money, too perfect. Lights were on upstairs, but the bottom floor of the garden level was dark, just like she said. I crossed the street, walked along the narrow side alley to the gate. Rusted iron. She wasn't lying. The thing stuck like hell. I lifted, pushed, and it groaned open like the door to some hidden chapter one wasn't supposed to read. The garden was small but manicured, a stone path, trimmed hedges, a bench under a skeletal tree. I walked to the side entrance. Before I could knock, the door creaked open. Michelle stood there barefoot in a long, dark cardigan and simple black slacks. No jewelry, no makeup, hair loose. She looked like someone trying to remember who she was before she became someone else's wife. "You came," she whispered. "Of course." She stepped aside and I entered. The interior was quiet, dim lighting, a record playing, somewhere a jazz guitar, soft and slow. It smelled like white tea and old books. She led me through a sitting room to the back where a kitchen island was set with 2 glasses and a bottle of red wine already breathing. "No dinner," I joked. Her eyes met mine. "I didn't invite you here to eat." We drank in silence for a while, sitting at opposite ends of the counter. The wine was good, expensive, probably older than some of my furniture. She sipped slowly, watching me like she was memorizing how I looked under this light. "I keep thinking this is a mistake," she said. "It probably is. But then I remember what it feels like to be with you, and I don't care." I wasn't sure what to say to that, so I reached across the counter and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, but didn't pull away. We didn't rush anything. When we
So,
finally
what
moved
do
to
you
the
think of
couch, it was
this?
more like
That's
gravity than
interesting.
choice,
Brings
sitting
back good
close,
memories.
not touching,
Yeah, like
yet
that trip
just
we took?
sharing breath and weight.
Exactly. You were
The
amazing.
first kiss
Thanks.
wasn't like
You
the
too.
one in the library.
Hey,
This one
ready
was
to go?
slower,
Yeah,
softer,
you look
no
amazing.
hesitations.
Thanks. Can you get my
She
bag?
pulled back
Of
after a minute,
course.
eyes searching mine again.
I can't wait
"Are
for
you
tonight.
afraid
Me neither. It's
only
gonna
of
be great.
losing something I never thought I'd find?" She laughed quietly and touched my cheek. "You speak like someone who reads too much." "I don't read nearly enough." That night, we didn't just sleep together. We let the world disappear. It wasn't passion in the movie sense, no fast breathing or slow undressing to background music. It was quieter than that, slower, like both of us had finally stopped running and found a pause button. We lay there for what felt like hours, after her head on my chest, my fingers tracing slow patterns on her shoulder. Neither of us said much, but at one point she whispered, "I think I forgot how to feel like this." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Sunday morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the distant sound of a spoon tapping ceramic. I followed it to the kitchen, where she stood barefoot again, hair messy, a robe tied lazily around her waist. She poured a second cup without asking. "I thought maybe you'd leave in the middle of the night," she said. "I thought maybe I wouldn't be allowed to stay." She handed me the mug. "This place is a cage sometimes. I forget it has a back door." We talked until noon about nothing and everything, about favorite childhood snacks, about why she stopped writing about my brother, who moved to Arizona, and stopped answering texts. It felt like being inside someone's diary, not reading it, being it. Eventually, I said I should go, not because I wanted to, but because it felt like the right kind of goodbye for something that wasn't over yet. She walked me to the door, pressed her hand against my chest once more before I left, and said, "Next time, don't knock. Just come in." The next 2 weeks, we became careful. She'd message a day in advance, just a time and a place, no emojis, no names, a bookstore, a hotel lobby, a side street in Old Town near an antique shop. Every meeting felt like a gift wrapped in tension. Every glance over her shoulder reminded me that this wasn't real life.
So, what do you
This
think
was
of
stolen
this?
time.
It's
One
interesting.
night we
Brings
sat
back
in
good
her
memories.
car, parked in a
Yeah,
dark
like that
corner
trip
near the
we took?
lake. Rain
Exactly.
tapped
You
the
were amazing
windshield.
then.
She looked
Thanks.
out at the
You too.
water and said, "Do you
Hey,
think I'm
ready to go?
awful?"
Yeah, you look
No, I
amazing.
said, "But I think
Thanks.
you've
Can
been
you get my bag?
unhappy for a
Of
long
course.
time." She nodded
I
like she
can't wait
already
for
knew that
tonight.
answer
Me
and
neither. It's going
just
to be
needed
great.
someone else to say it out loud. "I used to believe people only cheat because they fall out of love," she said. "Now I think sometimes they cheat because they fall out of themselves." I didn't know what to say to that either, so I kissed her, and for a second we weren't two broken people hiding in a car. We were just quiet, hole free. The envelope. On the third Monday after our first night, I found another envelope on my desk. Different handwriting, blocky masculine. Inside, three printed photos, one of me and Michelle outside the bookstore, one of us walking side by side along the edge of the Riverwalk, one of us grainy and zoomed in sitting in her car. No note, no threats, just the photos. My stomach dropped. I looked up. No one was staring. No one acted strange. But something was different. The meeting. An hour later, I got the email subject line, 11:30 conference room 4C. Sender assistant to Mr. Clark. I knew. I didn't delete the photos. I put them in my drawer, grabbed my jacket, and walked down the hallway toward the room where everything would end. Not because I had a choice, but because it was time. The walk down that hallway felt like the longest in my life. Every step echoed louder than it should have. The floor beneath me might as well have been made of glass. I didn't look at anyone, didn't try to guess who sent the photos, didn't wonder who knew what. I already knew enough. I opened the door to conference room 4C. Mr. Clark was sitting alone at the head of the long glass table, hands folded, watch glinting under the fluorescent lights. The blinds were half drawn. One chair pulled out for me. No smiles, no coffee, no assistance, no pretense. "Jake," he said like my name tasted sour. "Sir?" He gestured for me to sit. I did. He reached into his briefcase and placed a manila folder in front of me. Didn't slide it over, just left it where it was, then leaned back, resting his elbows on the armrests. "There's no NDA in your contract," he said calmly. "We're not going to court. You're not important enough for that." I swallowed but said nothing. He continued, "You're not the first. She has patterns, most of them smarter than you. Discreet, careful." He paused. "You weren't." I could feel my jaw tighten. My chest burned. He studied me for a moment. "I won't ask you to explain. I won't shout. I won't threaten. Frankly, I don't care about you enough to waste the energy. What I do care about is the company I built and the people who were supposed to represent it." I took a breath and met his eyes. "For what it's worth, I never—" He held up a hand. "Don't, please." Silence, Tom. Then he leaned forward, tapped the folder once and said, "There's your termination letter. You'll receive 3 weeks severance. Your badge is already deactivated. Don't come back into the building. Don't contact anyone from your department." He looked out the window like something far more interesting was happening across the street. "And Jake." I turned back at the door. He didn't look at me when he said
So,
it.
what do you think of this?
"Next time, try not
It's
to steal
interesting.
what isn't
Brings back good
offered."
memories.
I
Yeah,
left
like that
without
trip
another
we took?
word. That
Exactly.
same
You were
afternoon,
amazing
I
then.
packed up my
Thanks.
apartment,
You too.
slowly, like each drawer and
Hey,
cabinet had to
ready
be
to go?
negotiated with.
Yeah, you look
I
amazing.
didn't own
Thanks.
much, a
Can you
few
get my
books,
bag?
closed my
Of course.
laptop, two plants that were
I
barely
can't
clinging to
wait for
life.
tonight.
Me
I
neither.
sat
It's
on
going to
the
be
edge of
great.
my bed for a long time holding that brass garden key, not sure whether to throw it out or send it back. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. "I'm sorry, I never wanted you to get hurt." I stared at it for 5 full minutes before replying, "You didn't. Life did." She didn't respond, and I knew she wouldn't. The weeks that followed, I applied for every job I could find, marketing firms, nonprofits, anything within 50 miles. Interviews were awkward. I had to explain my sudden departure diplomatically. Most didn't call back. Eventually, I landed a part-time remote gig doing ad copy for a small chain of local gyms. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the rent just barely. Some nights I'd walk to the park 2 blocks from my apartment, sit on the same bench, just sit. One night in March, I saw a woman walk past wearing the same coat Michelle used to wear, same height, same posture. My heart jumped, but it wasn't her. I smiled anyway because for a second it almost felt like closure. Last contact. It happened nearly a month later. A letter, actual mail, no return address, just a small white envelope tucked under my apartment door. Inside was a single note, no date, no signature. You were never just an escape, you were a reminder. I read it once, then again, then folded it, placed it in a book I hadn't opened in years and slid it back on the shelf. I didn't need anything more. Now people think every story ends in either love or heartbreak. But that's not true. Some stories end in clarity quietly without a dramatic goodbye or a door slam or a tear-streaked confession in the rain. This one ended with a meeting, a folded letter, a key in a trash can behind a coffee shop. Sometimes the biggest things in your life last only a moment, a few stolen weeks, a conversation in the cold, a kiss under fluorescent lights, and a sentence that
So,
stays in your
what do you think
mind
of
long
this?
after the person is
It's
gone.
interesting. Brings back good
Mind if I
memories.
join your escape?
Yeah, like that trip we took?
No, I didn't.
Exactly. You
But
were
in the end,
amazing,
we
though.
both went back to our own
Thanks. You
cages.
too.
In the quiet
Hey,
aftermath
ready
of
to go?
Jake's fleeting affair
Yeah,
with
you look
Michelle,
amazing.
his
Thanks.
boss's
Can you get
wife
my
lies a
bag?
profound
Of
life
course.
lesson that resonates
I
deeply with
can't
all
wait
of
for
us
tonight.
who have
Me neither.
ever
It's gonna be
chased a
great.
spark of genuine connection in the shadows of our everyday lives. It's the bittersweet truth that true escape isn't found in stolen moments or forbidden glances, but in the courage to confront our own cages, those invisible bars built from routine, unfulfilled dreams, and unspoken loneliness. Jake and Michelle's story isn't just about infidelity or heartbreak. It's a mirror reflecting how we often drift through life pretending to be content while yearning for authenticity. They found solace in each other's honesty, a rare vulnerability that made the world feel alive again, yet it came at a devastating cost. Lost jobs, shattered illusions, and the harsh reminder that some doors once opened lead only to dead ends. This tale teaches us that while passion can ignite our souls and remind us of what it means to feel truly seen, it demands accountability. We must weigh the thrill against the wreckage, learning that real freedom comes not from escaping into someone else's world, but from rebuilding our own with integrity and self-awareness. It's an emotional punch to the gut, isn't it? That moment when Jake discards the key symbolizing the end of illusion and the start of painful clarity echoes in our hearts. Have you ever let go of something beautiful because it wasn't meant to last? This story urges us to seek connections that uplift rather than destroy, to embrace the silence within ourselves before seeking it in others. If this moved you, or if you have faced a similar crossroads in life, drop a comment below. Sharing your thoughts, what's the hardest lesson love has taught you? And if you want more raw emotional stories that uncover life's hidden truths, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's journey through these tales together. Your story might just inspire the next one.